It would be comical if it weren't so irresponsible. Their position is so precarious, they won't even allow Republicans to offer amendments or any alternative. Why? Because Democrats know the Republican bill to extend the current rates for all taxpayers would pass with broad bipartisan support.
Welcome back to Morning Joe. Joining us now, the ranking member, soon to be chairman.
Yeah, call him chairman.
Mr. Chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, Republican Congressman from Michigan, Dave Camp.
Look at him.
Yeah.
He's so young to be a Ways and Means chairman.
No.
You know, it's supposed to be like 80-year-old guy, jowls and jumping fountains. I mean, come on. He's, Wilbur Mills. So you're going to be the Ways and Means chairman.
I'm getting there.
That is, getting there slowly but surely. So what about the deal? We got a deal coming?
I hope so. I mean, look, this is a big deal for Americans that we not have tax hikes, and now you're seeing the trade press and markets potentially reacting if we don't do something. That I just think it's so important that we do it soon, and frankly, it should have been done before the election. All these votes should have happened while the American people could actually evaluate what we're doing. I think it's unfortunate it's been lame duck, but we do need to do it.
And that's something like this, what Chuck Todd said. The Democrats that are showing the courage now should have shown it before the election, had the votes, and then been judged by that.
It would have been nice, but we must move on. Also on the set, moderator of Meet the Press, David Gregory. Good to have you. Look forward to Mitch McConnell this Sunday.
Yes.
That should be good.
Wow.
Representative Camp, though, the words chicken crap were used by...
I hadn't heard that before.
John Boehner.
No, I heard it, but I'd never heard that formulation before.
Described the vote yesterday.
Heard each of those words.
Call it a stunt, right? But what's the compromise then? There's got to be one. I mean, we're going to play a game and wait for weeks, and then everyone's going to end up at a compromise, or can you just tell us what it is?
Well,
seriously.
I think we're not going to have a tax hike.
Okay.
So I think that's going to be
for everybody.
For anybody. I think no American should have a tax increase right now, and I think that's going to be the end of the day. That's what we're going to see.
One should point out that is not a compromise position. That is the Republican position.
Well, it's also
it's actually a bipartisan position. We've had many Democrats who will support us.
No, but it's also a bipartisan position. There's broad agreement to everybody agrees. Everyone agrees. Everyone on Capitol Hill, every single elected member of both houses agrees that taxes should not be raised for those making under $250,000. That's a bipartisan compromise position, isn't it?
No, because when you do that, you raise taxes on a big section of the economy, particularly small business. And so what you're going to see is a bipartisan vote for no tax increase.
David, this is what's so fascinating. Bill Clinton waited a year before really starting to triangulate Democrats. Barack Obama's doing it right now. Because the bipartisan deal is between Barack Obama and Republicans in the House and the Senate. It is the Democrats. This is like a political rapture. The political Democrats just got left behind on Capitol Hill.
Well, you got a couple of points. You have Senate Democrats who want to bludgeon the right with the millionaire tax idea. You've got the left in the House that wants to do what it's been doing now for a while, which is taking the votes it wants to take to send the message. Think about cap and trade and other things. They took the votes they wanted to take, even if they weren't going to pass in the Senate. They did it anyway. Here's what I think the broader picture is. President Obama looking around the corner and trying to use as a lever this deal on tax cuts to say, okay, we'll get the extension of the Bush tax cuts. Why? He doesn't want any more uncertainty in the economy. He doesn't want to lose any more jobs when he's trying to deal with that.
Right.
Then he has an opportunity, perhaps, to emerge as more of a fiscal conservative when he says to the Republicans, okay, you're serious about taxes and spending. Where are we going to cut? Are we going to raise taxes down the line? Are we going to get something? Are we going to have broad sacrifice in order to deal with the deficit? And if Republicans aren't willing to take the tough choices, then perhaps he's got a lever there.
But David, doesn't he need to figure out, I know it's usually out of emergency funds, but doesn't he need to pay for the extension of unemployment benefits to really have a hand?
Well, I think there's two things. I think this would be part of the deal. I mean, we see the outlines of the deal. This would be part of the deal. They'd pay for the extension of the unemployment benefits. Might help him a little bit on his left flank. That'll be unhappy with him compromising here. They probably also get a vote to ratify the START treaty, which the president has said is a priority. He wants to look at it on the world stage. It should be. And so they could get that done in the lame duck session, which is, what he said he wanted to get done. In the lame duck
future
session.
Mr. Chairman, is the START treaty really going to be sort of tangled up in this big ball of legislative compromises?
Well, part of it is because the calendar really is coming to an end. And for the Senate to act on that, it takes a long period of time. That's why we do need to get this tax issue out of the way before the Senate can turn to the treaty. And I think that's what's really driving the debate right now.
Now, you obviously worked very closely with Charlie Rangel through the years on the Ways and Means Committee. I was trying to explain to everybody, and a lot of partisans may not understand this. This was a genuinely sad moment, not only for Democrats yesterday, but also so many Republicans. When I said, "You going to see Rangel?" and they're like, "God, I don't want to. It's going to be painful."
Well, I like Charlie. Obviously, I worked with him. I was ranking member. He was chairman.
Most people
for a
like him
time.
there, right?
Yeah, they do. Yeah. He's very likable. Obviously, has a tremendous. He's a war hero, tremendous record. But it's a sad day. It was a sad day for the House.
Yeah.
But the rules are the rules.
Yeah, and that's what everybody's saying. So let's talk about the Deficit Commission. You're on the Deficit Commission as well,
yes.
right? You've had some Republicans come out, Democrats saying they're not going to vote for it. Are we being given, though, at least an outline, a starting point where the new Congress can start making some substantial cuts over the next decade?
You know, we really are. Erskine Bowles and Alan Simpson deserve a great deal of credit. And frankly, many of the ideas in this report, I'm going to have hearings on next year when I'm chairman of the committee. I think they really have helped set the stage for a really serious debate about spending, our deficit, and really trying to get our fiscal house in order.
David, what do you think?
Well, my question is really, can you begin a process that's this difficult by taking certain things off the table? Can conservatives like Paul Ryan, who voted against this, say, if there's tax hikes associated with this, I'm not part of this conversation? Is that a responsible position to take, just as Democrats have to face the tough question of, can you not have cutting entitlements on the table? How do we not have a starting point of broad sacrifice if we're really going to get somewhere where there's just no good politics, there's no good choices here?
Well, despite the votes of the commission members, this report is going to set the debate. And, you know, frankly, I think the levels of spending and taxation are far too high in this, and there's other problems with the report. I do like where they're going on tax reform. I think lowering rates is the way to go, and obviously closing off some of the tax expenditures. There's many good things, and they do take really some significant steps at cutting spending, both defense and non-defense.
Yeah, I was going to say, what about Pentagon spending? Too many Republicans in the past have said Pentagon spending's off limits. It can't be off limits.
No, it can't be off limits. And it's clearly not off limits in this report. It's not off limits for those who are supporting it, and it will be part of the debate.
But are tax hikes off limits, even beyond this report in the future?
Look, our economy is too fragile for tax hikes. I mean, we're having that debate now in the lame duck on.
What about
but Congressman, you believe that? But Congressman, you believe that independently of the current economy, right? I mean, it just seems to me like there's a lot of disingenuousness around this tax conversation. People say our economy right now is too fragile for tax hikes. But of course, Republicans during boom times pass these tax cuts. It seems to me the argument is during boom times we should have tax cuts. When the economy is weak, we should have tax cuts. Ergo, we should always, in every point, have tax cuts. Isn't that the argument?
Well, it's not exactly. Your review of history is obviously these tax relief measures came in during a recession after 9/11. So we think it's very important to have the right kind of tax policy.
They were proposed during the campaign.
We think it's important to have the right kind of tax policy to help grow the economy. What about the economy isn't growing. Unemployment is still far too high.
Dave, well,
we still don't have the job creation.
That's true. That's true. Let me just say that you're right. That there was in the period of years that the Bush tax cuts were in effect, which is a decade, there was zero net job growth. Zero net job growth. During the 8 years in which Bill Clinton was in office, in which there was higher effective rates than moderate, there was 22 million jobs created. So how is it the case that you look back on a decade of zero net job growth under these tax rates and argue that these tax rates are job creators?
Well, you know, you like to use the goalposts of administration to administration. I'll use the goalposts of Democrat Congress to Republican Congress until the exact opposite story. So, look, if you want to frame it in terms of who's president at the time, you can get a certain example. But look, I think it's just important that we not raise taxes. The economy is far too fragile, and we need to have all of this tax relief continue.
Is there a possibility 2 years down the road, let's say unemployment is down to 6.5%, 7%? I know that's awfully optimistic, but let's say that's the case. Is there the possibility at that point then that you look at moving the tax rates back up to what they were during the Clinton years? Because obviously we don't have $700 billion over the next decade, or $4 trillion, or however much it is over the next decade, to pay for these tax cuts.
Well, I think one of the things the election was about was spending. And I think unless we make some serious attempts at reducing spending, I don't think the American people will accept higher tax rates. And I do think there's a point where you don't go above. I mean, I think to have tax rates over 40%, which some are proposing,
right,
I think is actually going to hurt our economy and job creation.
Yeah.
Are we serious when this deal is done, and there will be a deal? Do we all agree that there will be some sort of deal?
That's something.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
That there will be a way to pay for it, or is all this talk
No.
about
It's not going to get
There
paid
won't.
for.
right?
Well, I mean, why should you have to raise taxes to stop taxes from going up? So I think in terms of what we're discussing now, I don't think there's going to be any sort of pay for preventing a tax increase.
But it's still added to the deficit. It's still added. The point is that it will expand the deficit.
And isn't that the other half of your platform would be to worry about the deficit, to make sure you make decisions that don't expand the deficit?
Well, it just makes no sense to raise taxes to stop taxes from going
But
up.
the conservative position is where are the corresponding where are the corresponding spending cuts if you're going to continue a policy that starves the Treasury. Right. And the argument by Republicans and Democrats is that the previous tax cuts were not paid for over time, and that they do have to be paid for. And there's a lot of conservatives who believe that's the case.
Yeah. So, David, this weekend,
McConnell on where we're going here on this deal, and John Kerry too. I mean, don't forget, we got the WikiLeaks stuff. Don't ask, don't tell. Big day on that today, so we'll have it all covered there.
So you got John Kerry on.
Yeah, as well.
Well, ask him if you wouldn't mind, just for me. Say,
Yeah.
hey, this one's from Joe. Ask him who the